My name is Margot Burgess-Paulet. I am the National Campaign Manager at the Climate Reality Project Canada. My background is in environmental assessment, actually, but I also, since with the project, been very involved at the municipal level. So today I'm really delighted to speak about the Campaigning 101 guide that our team has actually just launched in January this year. So it's a new tool and we're really looking forward to sharing it with the rest of the world. And I'll share a little bit about some projects also that have already started to be used with this guide. So without further ado, I hope my slide work and then I'm able to pass. Yes, I am. So what is the guide? It has a few elements to it and I'll list them for now. The 5 keys to success to campaigning, the 6 steps of what is campaigning and that you can go through, and I'll go in detail into it in my presentation. It includes as well a toolbox, which is an Excel with practical tools and exercises that groups can actually use and perform themselves. It includes a case study of a specific campaign that actually Mahip earlier has mentioned, the National Climate League, and I'll get a bit into it later in my presentation as well. And we have also included international examples of worldwide campaign because the Climate Reality Project actually has different satellite offices everywhere in the world. So for further inspiration to have this feeling that we're all around the world working toward a goal, those examples can be very inspiring. And I've included at the bottom of my slide, and I can share it at in the chat later on, the link for you to access as well. Maybe before I continue, I realize I have not explained what campaigning is and how this guide came about. So let me maybe backtrack and mention that a little bit. We have a network of people that are trained around the world to talk about climate change at Climate Reality, but we've noticed more and more that people want to get involved, but there's sometimes a little barrier on how to get started. And what are the steps that can be taken for advocating groups. And that's really how this guide came about. And we wanted it to be super accessible, whether you have a little bit of background, no background, or a lot of background. This can just be another toolkit to add under your belt. Oh, sorry about this. So then I will get into the quick 5 keys to success for successful campaigns. Number 1 is everyone is an activist mindset. We really encourage people with all background to motivate themselves to do actions, whether big or small. The second one is internal champions. It's been really interesting to see that groups that mobilize sometimes don't need necessarily a large number, but 1 or 2 people that actually have the capacity to really motivate it. And I think that tonight, all of the presenters are exactly those internal champions that dedicate their effort, their energy into the right things. And all of us have the capacity to do so with the right tools, which is exactly what this tool is meant to be. The number 3 is a clear focus with a dynamic strategy. I mean, when you start campaigning for something, you have an idea of the end goal, and one of them could be you want a certain policy to be implemented. That takes a lot of time, and having a plan is important, but going with the different ups and downs. I forget who the speaker was earlier who was saying that their meeting got canceled, and that's exactly what the dynamic strategy is. Sometimes you have an important meeting with your council that is scheduled, and it's important to keep it up and readjust when those unfortunate backlashes happen. Number 4 is build a compassionate movement, and that refers to the GEMA's principles of organizing. They are in the guide, so I won't detail them too much, but I encourage everyone to abide by them. And the last one is take care of yourself. I think we've seen more recently a lot more attention being drawn toward mental health in general, and recognizing that we're all human, especially in this extremely interesting time that we all live in, and these interesting years that we've seen, and how much we've had to adapt. And so just recognizing that when you're organizing, it might not be a part of your job, and it takes a lot of energy, and caring for yourself and being really aware of that mental health, of your own mental health, as well as others' mental health. When it comes to the 6th step of the successful campaign, I'll go through them quite briefly so you just understand, but that's one of the, that's how we recommend that you go toward the steps. Step 1 is getting started, set your topic, timing, and your objectives. Step 2 is to identify opportunities for change. What do we want and to target to create change? In this one, I want to point out that sometimes when you want to get started, you forget to maybe look at what exists already out there. When it comes to organizing, there are so many people that are doing things. So maybe joining an existing group or reaching out to other groups that might be interested into tagging along your own project can be very interesting. What you're trying to avoid at that step is separating and not putting all of the energy in the same basket, but maybe having different groups targeting the same thing, but not in a cohesive way, is unfortunately not helping the project in itself. Step 3 is to develop 2 to 3 calls to action that volunteers can easily mobilize around. And those actions can be easy ones like a petition, sharing social media posts. An interesting one that we've seen, especially in schools, has been writing on the floor, for example, with clay. That helps to get the attention as everybody kind of sees the message. And recently I was talking to a group that was able to reach out to their university staff by doing those kind of actions. Step 4 will be deciding on a platform to spread your message. Platforms can vary. Well, I'll talk in the step right after of social media because it's hard to avoid right now. But a platform can be an informal group that you're part of already, or even just your family or friends. Step 5 is developing a media campaign to spread the word with hashtags and social media toolkit. As I've mentioned, it's hard to avoid these days. So we've tried in this guide to provide examples that people can start so that they don't start from scratch and know exactly what to include, because that can really help leverage the attention that you get, especially in those times where it's hard to connect in person. And step 6 is a step that cannot be forgotten, is the evaluation of a campaign. So you develop and you implement tracking measures, and that doesn't necessarily need to be done at the end of the whole campaign. I think campaigns are interesting when they're broken up in smaller bits and pieces. So that way you are sure to take the time to reflect on what worked and therefore you should do more of, or what did not work, and therefore you would rather focus your attention or not focus your attention anymore on those types of actions. As a brief overview, the toolbox is a very good element of that guide. It's in Excel, as I said, with very useful exercises or activities that can be done as a group, because when you're trying to start a movement, really having a strong base and doing those research together and stating, oh, who is our main target, and kind of agreeing on it, or at least communicating to each other about those is very important. And that's how a group really gets together and is able to achieve their goals. And currently with the Campaigning 101, so as I said, we launched in January, we have 5 ongoing campaigns, which includes the event of today with all the presentators. So we're really happy about that. And all across Canada, we also have a project of, for example, a website with a climate pledge that people can take. We also have another one, which is more a hackathon vibe, where people get together and really brainstorm on finding solutions. So that guide is known to basically apply to a lot of different focuses, and I'm thinking could be helpful to a lot of the campaigns that you are currently all working on. And the impact of it that we're looking for is really just creating new opportunities for action for people, because that's what we've seen people craving for. The National Climate League is one of our biggest campaign, and I just wanted to give a bit of the case study of that campaigning guide. We looked a lot at that campaign in order to get inspired, because that's how we run it. So the National Climate League is an exercise that we have hubs all across Canada that are involved with. We also have 50 volunteers. They gather data on topics such as waste, transport, look at bike lanes, public transit, air quality, affordable housing. And on all those themes, we have 15 indicators that we gather data on, and that we help compare and kind of track how municipalities are doing. And that's a real tool for lobbying and for advocacy, to say, well, look at how our city is doing, and kind of compare and learn from each other. I think it's a huge tool for that, and we've been very proud of it. So if we go back on the kind of the 6 steps that I was talking about, one of them, step 3, is decide on 2 to 3 action items that your volunteers, or they don't necessarily have to be volunteers, but in our case, they are volunteers, that people interested in your campaign can mobilize around. And with the NCL, there are many opportunities that someone can take depending on their interest, but also on their skill. Whether it's more into writing blurbs about different themes. If you're really interested in air quality, for example, you can write about it. If you're okay with doing more research and connecting with your municipality to have more data on bike lanes or numbers of public transit, about public transit, then you can also do that. So lots of opportunities, and that helps kind of connect people that have similar interests, but very different levels of involvement, get together. And it all comes together with our launch, which is actually happening very soon on March 17th. So I'll be making sure to share this in the chat with everyone who might be interested to see the result of this campaign that is soon coming to an end. So that's the end of my presentation.